Harvey, you coming up?
No.
Maish, no?
Huh?
Why is this week different than every other week? Okay.
I only speak at a quarter to 8. Quarter to 9.
Most on there. We're good. Good morning. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. You know, over here, and other places, it's they call it Yeshiva Week. I'm not sure why they call it Yeshiva Week. They should call it Lack of Yeshiva Week. But Baruch Hashem, for the most part, we try to go on. And so thank you everyone for coming. In particular, I'll point out, I have a Talmud here this morning. It's also a Talmud of Rabbi Sharfman Zetzal. And what I think is beautiful is he's here on vacation. But I think that itself is a tribute to Rabbi Sharfman, that even his Talmidim on vacation realize that, first of all, they do their vacation around yeshiva, and they stop by yeshiva. They have a shir to come to. So Baruch Hashem. Harvey, you see, it's not just when they were in 12th grade, they were in Beis Medrash, they come for the donuts. They keep on coming back.
He didn't come a bit there.
Yeah. So today's topic is called Mikvah Shailos. Firstly, we decided to give this topic, it's the weeks of Sholavim, and it's become a custom that married men review some halachas regarding Taras Mishpacha, different aspects. Mikvah is in general a pretty major concept in Klal Yisrael. You know, they constantly find these expeditions. I saw interesting pictures not too long ago about Masada. But one of the pictures, they found some mikvah up there, Masada. Basically, wherever there was a Jewish community, Jews being there, they always needed access, especially go back, times in the base of Mikdash, they needed access to a mikvah, so people who were Tameh would be able to go into the base of Mikdash. And practically, for any family, you need to have mikvahs. And as a Jewish community spreads throughout America, throughout the world, there are many places which don't really have mikvahs at all, some that have pretty low functioning mikvahs. In fact, there's a wonderful organization, Mikvah USA, that goes around and tries to help out communities, doesn't yet have a mikvah, to build one. And it is a big deal. And we'll talk more the need to update and to have facilities that are accessible to all is a very important thing. I also figured out, when I was thinking about this topic, about mikvos, so it hit me, important to hear, that we think the Baruch Hashem, the Jewish world, Torah world, has grown so much in the past few decades. There's so many people sitting and learning in yeshivas. So one would think there are so many, when it comes to halacha, there are so many knowledgeable people that are involved in all aspects of halacha. And it's true on a basic level. But you go through the most complex areas of halachas, Erevin, Gittin, Mikvos, areas of Choshen Mishpat. The secret is there are a handful of people that are buckies in these areas, and they take care of the business all across America. Locally, we know by Lerfield, Shlita, by Lerfield does a tremendous amount of Gittin. He's a big bucky. A couple of years ago, the yeshiva was learning Seches Gittin, so I asked him, could I bring some of my Talmidim to see some of the practical halachas? I randomly approached him, middle of the year. He's like, when do you want? This week I have 2, next week I have 1. Unfortunately, it's a lot of business. But he's one of the few people in America that are very involved in Gittin. Just this past Shabbos, a relative of mine, someone staying by my house, he's become one of the experts in America on Eruvin. He basically travels around all the time checking out Eruvin. There are many areas of complex halachas, people learning in general, but to be a baki, to be someone that the world relies on, really these areas, there are few. He told me an interesting halacha story. It seems, outside of this area, we know Rabbi Lerfeld is involved. By Selmar is a sofer who writes the Gittin in Rabbi Lerfeld. But up in New York, there's like one sofer that's very involved in writing all the Gittin over there. Basically, all the Gittin are done. New York, New Jersey, East Coast area. There's probably a couple of sofrim that do it. There's one guy in particular who does a lot of the Gittin. And the person is already past mid-age. And one time, he's always, Baruch Hashem, busy, being able to be there for the tzibur. So one time he got sick. And there was a get that was coming. He wasn't up to doing it, so they had to have someone else do it. Fast forward a couple months. Fortunately, this sofer, his wife passed away. And what happened was, this sofer eventually decided up to getting remarried. The woman he remarried was a woman that day who would have been her get that he would have written if not for the fact that he was sick. The halacha is, if you're the sofer writing a get, you can't marry that woman. Because Baruch Hu worked it out. This person is tremendously osk b'tzibur, writing gittin. So the one day he was sick and missed the get, down the line, that was his second wife. He remarried. Because Baruch Hu has an amazing thing of orchestrating all the people. There are a lot of unsung heroes that are involved writing gittin, building mikvos, Eruvin. A lot of these areas, Choshen Mishpat, there aren't so many people that are bakis that are involved in it. And Baruch Hashem, you see from that story, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does whatever he can, all that he can, to compensate. Particularly in Hilchos Mikvos, besides the fact that they're complicated halachos, and maybe I'll show a few examples of that this morning, but it's a very tricky balance. Besides people being involved in mikvos, you have to be a baki in the complexity of them. For sure, the complexity in building a mikvah. But the halachos of utilizing mikvos, not simple. But it's also an area in halacha which is very, very sensitive. Obviously, dealing with the private matter. A mikvah should not be a place you bring kids, right? At least at a young age. It's right. It's a very delicate and sensitive area in halacha. A lot of the dealings are what you call Torah Shabbal Peh, are things which are not necessarily codified. They're things you need to have shemesh in. And it's a very, very sensitive area in halachas. On the one hand, you have to be holding in halachas very well. They're very complex. On the other hand, you have to know how to utilize sensitivity and balance the right things for people in situations. And I hope to go through some sensitive areas of halacha regarding mikvos. Not too sensitive. So rated for all audiences. But L'maisa, you come across probably some of the most sensitive areas of halacha touch upon mikvos. So let's begin. The basics of halacha, of Hilchos Mikvos, it's Yerodea, Siman Reish, Aleph. Start from the beginning. The Mechaber writes, Eina isha ola mitumasa, a woman who's a nida, who who has her cycle, she does not come up, does not change from her status of tumah with just berachitza b'merchatz, just by going to a bathhouse. It's not just you clean yourself off. Va'afilu alola kol memo shaba'olam. Shulchan Aruch decided to be poetic. Right? You sit by the Atlantic Ocean, you see how big the vast waters of the Atlantic are. You can even make a bracha. It's for a different share. But you don't just need the Atlantic Ocean. You take all the waters of the world, Mechaber writes. Adayin hi b'tumasa, she's still considered tameh. V'chayavim oleha kares. And if somebody would live with a nida, Rahman San, they would be violating an isser kares. Titful kogufa b'vasachas, until she's tovel her entire body at one time, b'mei mikvah, inside a mikvah, o ma'ayin, or a stream, sheyish behem arba'im sa, that has 40 sa. So the halacha that the Mechaber is writing, the most basic halacha in mikvahs, is you need a mikvah for a woman to purify herself from her tumah, and she could wash up, go to all the bathhouses of the world. It's not a measurement of the amount of water that she has to have, but it has to be in a certain body of water. The Mechaber gives two examples. Either in a mikvah, the simple, we'll see this in a moment, what the definition of a mikvah is, but a mikvah is a collection of rainwater, as we see 40 sa, that is a mikvah, a man-made collection of water. Alternatively, a ma'ayan, a stream, a natural body of water. That also would work. So either of those two are a way for a person to tire themselves. Now, practically, we utilize, for the most part, mikvahs today. We don't try to use mayans, a stream, or rivers, or oceans. There are potential cases. I remember I had a nice, interesting discussion over Shabbos. There are different chashashim we have of using more natural bodies of water. But the Ikar Adin one could, and under certain circumstances, people are stuck in a desert island, there ain't no mikveh there. So maybe first call the Rav before you go to the desert island. But if you get shipwrecked, okay, I got it.
You gotta read though. You gotta read mikveh is a mine.
Okay, that's true.
Many people go,
Right. On a cold day like this, it's a good day to talk about. He brings up the Arizal's mikvah. The Arizal's mikvah, which is basically in the middle of the Tzfas cemetery. Right? The famous legend is you if you go to the Arizal's mikvah, you're guaranteed to do tshuva before you die. The yeshiva bacher pshat in that is when you go into that mikvah, it's so cold, you die. Right? You did tshuva before you die. It's absolutely cold. Anytime guys go to Tzfas, it's always like a dare. Who's going to go into the Arizal's mikvah? Right? I mean, it's like a cave. It's in a cave, and yeah, it is a natural stream.
Worse than the Dead Sea.
And yeah, it's one of those like, oh boy, you know how many people go through that? Okay, I don't know. But so practically, for the most part, that's okay. One exception. For the most part, what we utilize today are man-made mikvos, which building a mikvah, we're not going to go through in today's share totality, but you need to have rainwater. You can't have regular water. Okay. Nowadays, they build mikvahs quite complicated with filtering systems and changing of waters and all this, and it's a whole process. And usually, they have one mikvah connected to something else, and it's a whole thing. Yes.
You need naturally collected rainwater. Is that
Correct.
correct? Not that you put buckets all over to collect rainwater and then pour it.
Right, that gets tricky. Correct. Right, then you have kalim. Yes. A whole building a mikvah, as we said, is not a simple process. And there only are a handful of individuals that really practically do it here. Now, You have to have, the big number is 40 saw of rainwater. How much is 40 saw? So I checked it up, put in nice terms. It's 575 liters. So you think of your nice 1 liter of soda, think of 575 bottles. That's the amount of water you need for a mikvah. Now you say 575 bottles, that's a lot of bottles. Well, if you're paying for bottles of soda, yeah, that is a lot of bottles. But you put together the volume of that water, it really isn't so much. It's about the size of of a bathtub, a little bigger bathtub.
150 gallons.
Huh?
About 150 gallons.
150 gallons. Okay, I think of my milk bottles.
What?
Yeah.
There are people whose fish tanks are larger than that.
Oh, okay. You give kashrus on fish tanks too? Yeah. I thought we're supposed to watch the fish, not eat the fish. But yeah, Rabbi Shafran, I think that's an excellent example, right? Is you could have a fish tank which is bigger than a mikvah. I don't recommend people using their fish tanks as a mikvah. That would be a little awkward. But yeah, a mikvah, the real, especially you look at some of these ones they dug up across Eretz Yisrael. A mikvah doesn't really have to be a big spot. There are people that build mikvahs somehow into their houses. It doesn't have to be really a big spot. 40 saw, end of the day, it's the amount, we'll see in a moment, it's the amount of water which will cover, the estimation is, will cover a human body. So 40 saw, that's what a mikvah is. Couple interesting shailos come up. Okay. What happens, let's start here. What happens if a person is very small and they themselves could be covered with less than 40 saw? Could you get by with a smaller mikvah?
No.
So the Aruch HaShulchan touches on that and says no, right? Pashta, you see here the Shulchan Aruch, he says 40 saw. He doesn't differentiate the size of the person. So even one smaller, 40 saw is the minimum. What about the other way? Let's say you have someone who's very big. Do they need to go to a mikvah which is bigger than 40 saw?
Are they going to be completely?
Is this 40 saw a magic number? Right? No. Let's say they're going to be, right? They're bigger really than that share.
So they're not going to be fully, says the Basar.
Right.
Not going to be fully, are they or aren't they?
Now really, right, there are halachas that goes through what's the dimensions of a mikvah. 40 saw, you could have it like a bath, or you could have it perhaps even more shallow, spread out. And the halacha goes through those cases too. Some of them are not so pashut, depending. We practically the way we build mikvahs today, a person could go into a mikvah standing up. But technically speaking, you could spread out the water, where a person, the only way the 40 saw would be on them is if they lay down on it. Shulchan Aruch goes through some of these cases, not so simple. Right? The ideal mikvah is a mikvah a person could just walk into. But what we're talking about here, let's say the person's very big. Would they be allowed to go to a 40 saw mikvah? Or would you say, no, you need more than that? Yes?
Obviously, if the mikvah is only 40 saw in size, you couldn't get into it without without having the water leave the mikvah.
Okay, that's another good point. And the Mishnayos, Mikvahs talks about this. Is practically nowadays, we try to make our mikvahs more than 40 saw. One of the reasons is usage. Right? I don't know why, but people like taking souvenirs when they leave the mikvah. I don't mean the towels. Automatically, when a person goes into the mikvah, there's going to be some amount of the water still on his body. So if you have exactly 40 saw, Rabbi Shafran's bringing up, then it's good for the first guy who goes in, but the next guy not.
Saying
If his feet are in, so that's a whole complicated mission too.
If the size of the mikveh is only 40 saw, also won't work, because then the water will leave before you get total in 40 saw.
Yeah, yes,
Person's falling out in a big wall.
right.
It's not hot.
Yeah. You have to-
Yeah. So practically, yes, they have things more than 40 saw, okay.
It's not.
But we're talking about if you have a person who's very big, do you have to build a 50 saw mikvah, a 60 saw mikvah for them? Or do you say, no, 40 is the magic number?
Saying if 40 saw holds the person and the water, if they can somehow submerge themselves, they can be covered in the water.
So you would say 40 is good.
40 saw is the volume of water, not the volume of the
Right,
thing
right.
that's holding the water.
It's only if he's going to be submerged. If he's going to be submerged, it's good. If he's not, then
40
That's
saw
not a question.
of water at 152 gallons, according to Rabbeinu Google, is not even 3 by 3 by 3 cubic feet.
Okay.
20 cubic feet.
So first of all, this is the first quote that I've heard from Rabbeinu Google in a while. Right? They used to find this Ksav Yad in some attic in Egypt. Rabbeinu Google.
right, it was changed from Google.
Right?
Well, in
Gosh.
terms of converting
Wear a
gallons,
suit of
gallons
water.
to cubic feet.
So I'll tell
So
you.
many times.
Yes.
What about adding some regular water if there's not enough? In other words, diluting a little bit.
Okay, so that gets complicated. Can you add regular water once you have the 40 saw?
That's what we do.
Yes.
What happens here exactly?
Huh?
You got 40 saw.
I'm just talking.
I'm saying, you got.
You have a mikvah that's 40 saw, 41 saw, 42 saw.
Somebody very large.
Basic, and someone very large wants to go to the mikvah.
Okay, does it cover his whole body?
So let's say not necessarily.
Not necessarily, so that's really no good. That's
Okay.
the page you just read. It has to
So-
cover his whole body at one shot.
So I'm going to first read to you. Let's begin the Aruch HaShulchan Sif Yud. So in the left column, the Aruch HaShulchan writes, "V'nei be'emes, rov gufim enim eschasim b'pachas mimem." Look, most bodies won't be covered with less than 40 saw. Shem neitam zeh who has sheared the mem saw emotional bar. Right? This idea of 40 saw, that's why Chazal estimated normal human body, and that's where they came up with 40 saw. Uveguf gadol harbe, have a very big body. Shegam mem saw will yaspik lakisei kolokov. That even 40 saw wouldn't fully cover one's body. Pshita the gam b'mikvah, the gam b'mayan tzarech yoser. It's pashut that we wouldn't say 40 is the cutoff point. You need more than that. The ikra min Torah b'kisei kolokov. The ikra from the Torah is for his whole body to be covered. So the Aruch HaShulchan is writing black and white. Of course, pashut, you need more. What's interesting is there's a Darchi Tshuva, which seemingly quotes this Aruch HaShulchan, and he argues. He says, no, Dafka 40 saw, not a drop more. Where does he get it from?
Not a drop more allowed or
Huh?
needed?
Not more needed. As long as you go to a mikvah which is 40 saw, even if this person is a big person, it doesn't cover his whole body, it's good enough.
It's not misfasted called guf, it hasn't been played.
So, okay.
With today's tricks, it's not hard to walk.
Yeah, he's not talking about, right, he's not talking about doing all these tricks. But he's saying even a mikvah less than 40 saw, even if not meschasa kol gufa b'vas achas, right, would be good. What's the reasoning? So he says the shear of 40 saw is halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Just like halacha l'Moshe Sinai, we got that your tefillin has to be black. He's understanding that the shear of 40 saw is halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Once that's so, right? Kacha, so Moshe brought down together with the tablets from Har Sinai. So we don't start hacking and changing it.
It doesn't
40 is
have to
40.
be Kol Gufa.
So according to that, it doesn't have to be kol gufa b'vasachas. Could be you have to touch it all,
Okay, it could be one.
but
right,
it doesn't have to be at one time.
Instead of 47 mikvah also, the theory if she stuck her foot in, or a person sticks their foot in, and then their other foot in, and their arm in, let's say it's too cold, that would work
That would
too.
work according to
It sounds like, according to this opinion, you're right. He's really knocking out the whole element that your whole body has to be covered at one time. Because if we're going to have a person who's bigger, right? Imagine one of these, there's, one of these NBA stars decides to become from, right? Oh boy,
This is,
he'll need.
this is a person who we need to deal with leniencies of whatever kind. The additional question being asked.
Does it work? Forget whether you should do it. The question doesn't work. Does being told something part of the time work? Is it a functional activity? Is it halachically permitted? And it seems like the document will say yes. Which is a massive kiddush.
It's a massive kiddush. Fact.
This would be no gator, probably, it's more common, we have this all the time, I assume it's the same halachas, would be potentially no gator to feel it's kalim. Where we, nowadays, stick it, the normative, we pretty much pass has gotta be in all at once. But according to this, I don't see why not, according to this Darkei Tshuva, as long as you do half and half, and it would work according to
Perhaps,
that.
yeah. Well, I'll get to Tefillah's game in a second. Hold on. I see when you start a few minutes later, the coffee and the time kicks in. Boy, I think I've gotten per moment more questions and input. So hold on. So I saw that people do question this Darkei Tshuva. The Pashtus does seem to be like the Aruch HaShulchan. Even if you tell me there's some din 40, is some halacha Rosh Hashanah, some element, but sounds like we do utilize the concept that we want a person to be total his whole body at once, and therefore you have to make it adjustable for different bodies. Not so pashut. I want to touch on another halacha. Also expands these halachas of mikvah. The first Aruch HaShulchan, top of the page, Sif Tes. Torah's Kohanim says that a ma'ayin is matar b'chol shehu. A stream is matar any amount. The 40 saw that we're talking about is a mikvah din. Torah's Kohanim says that a ma'ayin, you have a stream, doesn't have to be 40 saw. It could be less. Mikvah barva misah. V'yesh b'zeh prukta d'rabusa. And Aruch HaShulchan brings down, it's a major machlokas. Brings the lashon of the Torah. V'afim titvo b'ma'ayin tzarech she'ebo memsa. The Torah holds if one would be tovel in a stream, you would also need 40 saw. The Torah's Kohanim told me, the Medrash tells me, the ma'ayin is matar b'kol shehu. Hainu dafka l'kelim. When you need to be tovel keli and you put in the stream, there we say you don't have to measure how big the stream is. As long as it's a natural stream, it's matar b'kol shehu by a keli. But avol adam, avol bishu katon, shekol gufa miskasabo b'pacha. So you have a small person whose body will be covered with less than 40 saw. Nevertheless, b'kol makom ein tefila olabo elam kein yirbo memsa. Unless you have 40 saw. This is the Torah's position. The Aruch HaShulchan brings the Rambam and the Ravid, who argue and say no, a person would be tar by a ma'ayin with a kol shehu. Another chiddush. But the Aruch HaShulchan ends off, look, the Shulchan Aruch didn't say anything about that, didn't bring out another shita. He talked about 40 saw by both a mikvah and a ma'ayin. So it seems not like that. So it comes out, very interesting, halacha l'maisa, Shulchan Aruch is paskening, you always need 40 saw for tefillas adam. For kalim, if you use a stream, it could be any amount. You're upstate, you can't find a Kela Mikvah, New York, the electronic stores, the houseware stores have mikvahs inside the stores, right? Other places you don't have it. So you go to the stream, take your new coffee urn, dip it in, you're all good. It doesn't have to be 40 saw. But when it comes to a person, there we're saying, halacha l'maisa, you do need 40 saw, even by a mayan. Except there is a shita, just be aware, there is a shita, the Rambam, the Ravid, they hold that for Adam you can also have a kol shehu. What's pshat in that? In Matayr, in any amount of water, it's a small amount. Like we said before, you don't have to wash it. You wash your body with that water, holy water. It's like rub it on. So I found a very interesting pshat to potentially explain this. In fact, it's from Rav Hershel Schechter. I unfortunately wasn't able to be there, but I heard he gave a share community just the other night, a big crowd. Just the other day, I heard an amazing story. Everyone knows Hershel Schechter is a very chashav, a Talmid Chacham, posek. Right? We rely on the OU. He's the person behind the OU today. So just recently, even by the Sima Shas, he was one of the people that Aguda featured one of their videos about Limud Torah. So someone told me a story that at one point of Hershel Schechter had one of his daughters living in Passaic, New Jersey. And so a lot of times when he would come to community, such a well-known Talmid Chacham, he's always asked to be skal in the residence, right? It was a big deal. Shari got him for Thursday night. They got him in Boca, they got him here and there. When he's in town for Shabbos, he's usually speaking. Well, one time he was visiting his daughter in Passaic and didn't make a fuss about it. No one knew about it. So whatever. Came to Passaic. Where did he choose to daven? He went to daven in the yeshiva, Gedol Passaic. The yeshiva Passaic. Mayor Stern's yeshiva. He's sitting there. Most of the Bachram yeshiva did not know who the man. He has a relatively small beard. And sitting and learning. The story was told to me. Friday night, the Rosh Yeshiva sees him sitting there. Mayor Stern goes over to him and starts pointing towards the Mizrach. Bachram are like, who's this guy? What? Mayor Stern is inviting him to go sit on the Mizrach of the yeshiva. And he just refuses and just sits back by his seat, goes back to learning. Next morning, he got shlishi in the yeshiva. Mayor Stern, very chashav of Rosh Yeshiva, Talmud Rabban Kotler, recognizes, Hershel Schechter is a very, very chashav of Talmud Chacham. So he says a very nice pshat to explain what's the chiluk. Perhaps one of these two shitas, whether mayan by a stream, would you need 40 saw, or can you get by with the kol shehu? So he brings from a Rogachover, Charles Chuvas Rogachover, a chakira, and how do we understand mikvah? Nice brisker chakira. How do we understand the din of mikvah? Is the pshat you need 40 saw for that to be classified as a mikvah? In yeshivish terms, you would say, for the cheftza of the mikvah itself, a mikvah needs 40 saw. Or no, it's not for the entity of the mikvah to be a mikvah you need 40 saw. 40 saw is the process which the person needs for him to do the act of tefillah. When we're talking about this 40 saw business, is that you want to define what's a mikvah is 40 saw. Or do we say, it's not as much the mikvah as it is the process of what the person needs for them to come tahar. If you say it's a process, I have to go through a mikvah of 40 saw, I have to get 40 saw worth of water over my body at once. So then it'll be irrelevant of whether you're going into a mikvah or you're going into mayan. You, for the process, your body has to come in contact with 40 saw. So that would be the sheet of the Shulchan Aruch Paskins, that a Mayan also needs 40 sa. There's no difference. Torah's Kohanim says Mayan is kosher. That's to be tovel your new coffee pot. But to be tovel a person, that you always need 40 sa. But to be miyashiv the Rambam, who holds that for Ma'ayin you can have even a small amount, the kol shehu, for a person, that's because the shear of 40 sa is the definition of what makes a mikvah. You're collecting this rainwater and you want to make it a mikvah? To be a mikvah you need 40 sa. A Ma'ayin, to be a stream, a natural stream, that's the scientist. Anything that's natural and flowing, there's no shear of 40 sa. It's a stream. It's a stream whether you proclaim it to be a stream or not. So therefore you can get by with less. Very, very interesting chakira, which has a halakha nafkamina. Practically, we say you're going to go into a stream, you go into a river, you also need your 40 sa. So you have to measure it. So you'll take with your Rabbeinu on Google next time you have a Shiloh of going to a stream for a person. So there you would need the 40 sa.
So the 40 needs to be in one spot, or any mine by definition has some underground source
Why don't you have a
of water from whence it's coming. Certainly if it's coming out, it's got some underground source of water from whence it's coming. So that's not considered connected to the whole source of the water.
I'm not sure, right? We don't usually say that, I don't know how it connects underground. That's natural connection, not talking about pipes or this.
Therefore, my aim is as long as it's connected, it's connected. As long as it's and there's no place where it's not that way, it's considered a cover.
Yes. Now hold on. As we see, so let me summarize what we did in part 1. I want to get to part 2, and I have to watch the clock. So what we wanted to show, part 1 of today's share about mikvos, is that mikvos are complicated. I think I did a good job of that.
You got it.
Right? I hope I clearly showed it's complicated. That we need 40 sa for a mikvah. What we brought up is what happens if you have a smaller person, what happens if you have a bigger person, potentially this chiluk between a mikvah and a mayan, where the Torah's Kohanim says a mayan you could get by with less than 40 sa. And this very interesting chakira, whether the 40 sa is regards to the process of the person being tar, or more so for the definition of making something into a mikvah. It will have potentially nafkaminas. What I want to touch on, part 2, is some aspects of these sensitive halachas of the mikvahs. I'll try to go through this quickly. Give me 10 minutes. Now, these shilos are definitely very, very tricky. That's why a rav involved, if any shilos of mikvahs, has to be quite knowledgeable and quite sensitive to these halachas. And also the people in the process, the women involved, a mikvah lady, has to be somebody that really, really understands people, understands sensitivities. Just, past couple of days, talking to my wife's uncle. Fortunately, my wife had an aunt who passed away a couple months ago. So, this is Robin Neumann, was a famous, amazing thing. It's an amazing thing for a woman to spearhead and build one mikvah in their lifetime. This woman, I believe, built 3 or 4. Unreal. Los Angeles, Silver Spring, Maryland, and New York. Amazing woman who was considered one of the Buckies in mikvahs. And I asked him for different shilos, different stories. It's unreal the amounts of sensitivities and level-headedness a person needs to deal with all situations that might arise, and to understand There are some people, it's very hard to get them to go to mikvah in the first place. And some people, all different types of trauma and challenges, physical and emotional, and deal with things. You have all types of people. This is not really nogea. A chatzitza, it's okay. But, we have people that, have tattoos. So tattoos are considered already part of the body. It's not considered a chatzitza. But she was once saw a woman go to the mikvah, and she had
decorative tattoos or numbers.
all decorative tattoos.
Okay.
And this woman, I think the case was she was Jewish, but on her back she had the lashon Yashka loves.
Yashka loves.
Yeah.
Baby.
Like all types, all situations, like you have to realize people come in the world today with so many different, a lot of baggage. And you have to notice the baggage, even not holding it in their hand. So, one shaila, a fascinating shaila I came across. This shaila was dealt with in a Torah journal published by the Slobodka Yeshiva in Tuf Reish Sadi Tes, which is 1939. It goes quite a bit back. I did not see the journal itself. I only saw it quoted really secondhand. So I don't know who wrote the tshuva, some Talmud, some Slobodka Nick. But this was a shaila, very unfortunately practical shaila. Right? You have a Rav, he's being Masar Kedushin at a wedding. I guess he talks to the couple, finds out about the couple. Now, this couple does not plan on practicing Taharas HaMishpacha for the wife to go to the mikvah after they're married. The shaila was, can the Rav be Masar Kedushin for such a couple? A very, very, very tough shaila. And I give a big disclaimer. The purpose of this part is just to show some of the angles in halacha. I would say not to paskin halacha. Such a weighty shaila. This is a Shmuel Kamenetsky shaila. It's a big, tough shaila. And these things happen. But the couple's getting married, but no, we ain't doing it. So do you turn them down? Sorry, look for somebody else? Or do you work with them?
Did they say they have to?
It sounds like yes.
But they said we will not.
Yes.
That you don't know. You can just.
The lashon is mutar laharav l'sadar kedushin l'zug shein nizarim b'tfilas nida. Are you allowed to do that? Do we say it's lofnei iver? Do we say misayeya? What do we say? So the tshuva comes out with a tzad, comes out with maskana to be mekel and be misadar kedushin for them. And the logic which was posed back in 1939, again, you also have to know the people, and there's so many specifics, so hard to make klalim, and one could argue times change, but in some ways it's the same. Basically comes out that they're afraid if you're going to turn them down, what are they going to do? They'll go to a conservative reform, rabbi at best, and Rabbi Sally will say, don't worry about it, it's all good. And you're pushing them away from a connection to Torah Yiddishkeit. So that was an overarching theme that this Rav from Slobodka wanted to utilize to be mekel. And said, hey, look, you don't want to send them off this. Obviously, you encourage them, you talk to them as much as you can to build up that they should be makabel. But at the end of the day, with all your efforts, you exhausted, they're not ready to do Taharas HaMishpacha. Would you be Masar Kedushin? This tshuva said yes. Yeah. L'maisa, personally, I don't think this is Pashat. Hearing from my Rosh Hashiva, Hanach felt that the view of a Masar Kedushin isn't just a rabbi officiating at a wedding. You have achrayas for everything. He for sure said, Lagabi the wedding. Let's say, you have a wedding, if you know the wedding is going to be, might break into mixed dancing. So Mahanachel, you're not allowed to be Masada Kedushin. Because your job as a Rav, to be Masada Kedushin, is not just, I now pronounce you, right? It's not a rat, right? It's not, you're not just, the religious figure marrying them off. You're achroi for what goes on there. And Mistama, right, this I didn't clarify. Hannah held that for sure for the chasna, but what din? This is such a major area. They're not going to keep tires in mishpacha. It's not so posh to touch that one. It's it's your achrayas. End of the day, they're going to have your stample, right? Who officiated at the wedding? Your name's going to be behind it. It's a big achrayas to take on your shoulders, and it's not so simple. But at the same time, there was a psak.
These shilas are extremely variable.
Yes, yes.
Many,
I agree.
In this day and age, you're working with many of these shilas at Rabbonim are working with people. You're thrilled that they're not. You work very diligently to get them to marry somebody
Jewish
even.
Right.
And now there's
correct.
all sorts of varying degrees.
Yes, I'm just offering food for thought. Again, now Lachla these are very, very delicate. I'm trying to portray how delicate and sensitive these shilohs are. I'll raise you one. Take a look at the next shiloh on the back. This is a shiloh sent in, nice sefer, Noach Isaac Olbaum. It's Rav in Queens. Heard he's in West Palm Beach a little bit now. So, Choshev Rav Posek. So, he was asked a shiloh of a case where a woman wanted to go to the mikveh, except she didn't want to do anything before that. The whole Tara process, Bedikos and the works, that I'm not doing. I'm just going to go to the mikveh. Would one allow a woman to go to the mikveh when she didn't do all the other steps leading up to it? So he brings down, very interestingly, that unfortunately these shilohs come up. Do you know where these shilohs come up? Quite fascinating. Shiloh didn't come up in Wyoming. I'm sure they do too. But the shiloh came up in Mea Sharim. In Zupnik's mikvah over there, that they had a case like this, and they would not let the woman go to the mikvah if she did not do the previous steps. At the same time, this is reported, that they asked Rav Shlomo that Rav Yoshev mattered. So this person's asking the Shaila, I want to know, Rav Olbaum, what do you hold? This is what happened. In Meir Sharim, the locals did not. Rav Yoshev permitted it. What would you hold? So he goes through and he actually uses this kovetz, this tshuva from Slobodka, where the Rav mattered Sir Kedushin, even though the woman didn't go to the mikveh, where you see a leniency in that area. Who did over here? And he goes through in halacha, the whole concept of bedikos, practically, without her gosh and different things, might only be a derabanan, and by her going to the mikveh, you're saving her from Isurei Daraisa. So, thus, he felt in such a scenario, they'll be okay.
Who says later,
Same thing.
Who says later immersions will not include all of these things?
Right.
Whereas,
Here, this is right.
No, forget you. You're done, and you're done.
Right.
Isn't it like a semi-public utility?
Right. You're bringing up, right, this Shaila is one particular case, right? It could be in the future, the person would do the whole
That's
process.
just not saying, yeah.
If you shut them off, you're arguing.
For it. No,
Right? If you shut them off now, they'll never show up again.
I'm just, what was with the, I assume with that, what was with the husband? Does the husband know what's going on?
I don't know. It does not
That's much
comment
worse,
on the
right?
husband.
It should have been
You're gonna
public
come
utility that if someone is moves
A mikvah is not really a public, a mikvah, you got to get past the guards of the mikvah. And it's a rabbinically run institution. and it's not just open. Okay, anyone wants to go? Over. That's part of how it's managed, is by having someone there on top of it. Now, Lamaisa, we just point out, have it on the record.
Is Daniel walking around in Sharim? I did this and no.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's amazing, right? Now we know what goes on in the back streets of Meir Sharim, right here.
Oh, you know, an instant that went on.
Yeah. But let me just put on the record, also over here, it does not sound so posh. It doesn't sound like a perfect comparison to the case before. Because over there, by the Seder Kedushin, it's one thing to say, look, I'll separate them as sort of like two things. I want to get you two married right now. That's step one. So I'll be Seder Kedushin. This way, if I have a Seder Kedushin, if you're married, there won't be issues of znos, there won't be issues of, right? You'll be married al pi halacha. There's a second issue, okay? There are certain aspects of halacha you're not going to keep, okay? Deal with that, right? If a person doesn't keep, I swear not to wear shatnez. I swear, to wear shatnez. Not going to be Seder Kedushin for them? Okay, obviously Taras Mishpacha is much more. But one, potentially, I could hear his argument, I could hear the Slobodka argument, that maybe, okay, let's split them up into two things. Here, it's within the process of Tara itself. I want to do part B, but not part A. Who says you can split it up like that? The Tara process is, you have to do the Tara process. And the final part of the process is going to the mikvah. I just want to do the mikvah. So it might be not so simple to split those two up and say, okay, we'll accept this part. Either way, I believe what one emerges after the immersion in halachas of mikvahs is, I hope one sees the two aspects of it. There are many complicated halachas regarding, of course, building a mikvah, but huadin, going in a mikvah, exactly the process, the 40 saw, how does one do it, all different scenarios. But it's also very sensitive, all these things, and you're 100% right, is the concept of mikvah, especially to a person who wasn't brought up in a Jewish home, sounds so strange. And so it's one of the hardest things, I'm sure, for a Baal Tshuva to come to grips with. And thus, one has to be extra careful in dealing with them. And, a regular firm person could have phobias and fears going to a mikvah. Kol shekein, a person who thinks this is like, I never heard anything about this. It's quite delicate and sensitive, and you need the right training, right shimush, right shikol hadas. It's very complicated of how to deal with people in all these scenarios. And Be'ez Hashem, we hope that everybody is dealt with in the proper way, that everyone should be able to keep this mitzvah, very important areas, and Be'ez Hashem, we should have, just like with so many elements of Limud Torah that are Baruch Hashem flourishing within the Frum community, Huadin, these areas too of Kedusha and Tara should also be something which is flourishing throughout the Frum community. Amen. Thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.